Hi guys, it's Mrs. Myers coming at you with this week's project. Our theme is robots. So this week we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna make a robot, but he's not gonna be very big. And we are also gonna use our flat Mr. B in this project, and we're gonna make what's called a diorama. And what that means is it's a 3D scene with characters that are movable. So we're gonna create this whole scene, and you can make your robot move back and forth. You can make Mr. B move back and forth, up and down. You can make the scene look however you want. I am so excited to make this project with you, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I have enjoyed making this. All right, let's get started. Okay, so when figuring out how big we want to make our robot in our diorama, what we need to do is first lay the paper up next to our box to see kind of our sizing. So that's what we're trying to do, is gauge size. So I know that my robot really shouldn't be any taller than about this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make a little crease in the paper so that I know not to really go past that edge, okay? And then I wanna make sure that my robot's probably about half that size, because I want my robot to be in proportion with my diorama. Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna decorate that all. I'm gonna cut it all open, decorate it to make it look like a background. But let's get started in drawing our robot. Okay, so here's my paper folded in this taller part. See, it's not quite in half, it's a little bit more than half. So knowing that this is about as tall as my robot is gonna be, I am gonna go ahead and fold this into half again. So then that way I know my parameters and how big I wanna make my robot. If you don't have a box to where you can make the diorama for the background, you can always just do a full sheet of paper and draw your robot, and then I'll show you how to decorate the background. Okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and start using all kinds of shapes. Remember, we're gonna use squares, triangles, rectangles, circles, ovals, all of the different shapes to create our robot. So I'm gonna put this on time lapse. I'm gonna draw it in pencil. Then what I'm gonna do is trace it in Sharpie. So as soon as I am done with that, we'll come back together and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, so now that we have finished drawing our robot and we've gone over it in Sharpie, now here is why we go over it in Sharpie, okay? Sharpie is waterproof. So if we put any marker down on here and we are gonna use a little watercolor, it will make sure that these black lines don't smudge, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use any color of washable marker. I'm gonna use gray because I like gray. I think it goes along with the robot theme, but truly your child, you can do any color you want. So what we'll do is we will just line around in here, and then we'll take our paintbrush and our little bit of water, and we will rub that around on those lines. And what it'll do is it won't be perfect in creating watercolor, but it will give a watercolor style effect. Okay, let's get started. Okay, notice I didn't color it all the way in because I want it to have a little bit of effect. So what I did is I just kind of outlined some spots. There is no rhyme or reason on how you make your outlines. Just go ahead and do some so that there's some color in all the different sections. And then what I'm gonna do is show you how to turn this into kind of a watercolory style paint. So I have my little paintbrush, and I am using a paintbrush that is small enough that I don't feel like it's gonna make a huge mess. But again, we're gonna cut this out to make our diorama. So if you get out of the lines, no big deal. If you are not making the diorama, you're just making the robot painting, then what you can do is if you get out of the lines, no big deal. We can go around the outside of the robot with a different color, add water to it, and then it will blend in, no worries. Okay, let me show you how to do this. So remember, when you dip your paintbrush in your water, you should swipe the extra off, just to get that extra little bit off. And then you're gonna take your paintbrush and you're gonna just moisten like that. Okay, see how it's not getting rid of the line? But what it is doing is it is allowing us to fill our robot in with that gray paint. and still giving it some kind of dimensional effect. I think that's really cool. See how it starts to bleed a little bit? And I like that outline that it creates. Okay, so let's get this all the way painted in here. And then we can set this aside as soon as we've gotten it painted, and we can start working on our diorama. Okay, I'm almost done here. See, it really doesn't take long. It's such a great little effect. There we have it. Maybe even come in here and add a little bit more water just to make it kind of fill in a little bit. Did you notice that our Sharpie did not run? Because Sharpie is waterproof. That is absolutely why it is essential that you use Sharpie anytime you use watercolor. Okay, so we are done with our robot for now, so let's set him aside and let's start on our diorama. All right, so a diorama is basically just a scene. What we're gonna do is, this is the only box that I could find in my house. And what I have to do, the top of it is busted, so I glued it a little bit. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this, basically the top part off, and leave the bottom in place. So I'm going to use my scissors to cut this down. Kids, if this is going to be dangerous for you, please do not do that. Have mom and dad help you cut your box. If you have a shoe box, that would work even better. It's already the shape you need it to be. I personally don't have a box, so I had to use what I could find. Okay, so let's get started. So here's my box. I went ahead and cut the edge of it off. So it used to look something like this, and I took that off of the front, but from where I had opened it, I'm gonna have to do a little taping. So what we're gonna do now is, if you have paint, tempera, like the thick creamy paint, you can come in here and you can paint a whole background scene. Is your robot in your house? Is your robot in its bedroom? Is your robot outside playing? You can decorate this however you want. If you have tempera paint, you can paint it right on. If you don't, you can use construction paper and you can just cut it out and glue it in to make your whole scene. If you have modeling clay, you could put that in there and you could make some three-dimensional stuff. You could maybe make a tree, or you could make a bed, or you could do anything based on the scene that you have picked to create for your diorama. So I don't have tempera paint, not paint that I think is of any quality to work on cardboard. So I think I'm just gonna use markers, and I'm just gonna kind of color in here an outside scene and maybe even make like a little three-dimensional tree. Okay, let's get started. I'll give you a little update that as I was working with this box, I thought it was just too thick. So I went ahead and cut it in half to make it a little bit more manageable, and that way the scene stands out just a little bit more. So I'm gonna start by making a background. I think I'm gonna use a little bit of paper and cut out maybe a tree. I'm gonna make an outdoor scene is what I have decided. So I am going to get this started. I also wanted you to know that in the weekly happenings, we had a little Flat Stanley themed project, and it's called Flat Mr. B. So I went ahead and cut one of those out and colored and decorated to go along with my robot. So my robot and Mr. B are gonna go on a little adventure together when my robot has dried. All right, let me show you what we're gonna do with this background. So as I was testing out my marker, my blue marker on the cardboard, I thought it was a little dark. So I found a crayon that was peeled, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use this to color in. So I want it to show the color, but I don't want it to be overpowering so that it looks like my scene is at midnight. So I'm gonna go ahead and start coloring that in. Okay, so now that we've colored in the blue and the green for the background, now we can really start to make some details. But before I do that, what I'm gonna do is, for my diorama, I'm gonna have my little Flat Mr. B and my robot on a little piece of cardboard, okay? Just like attach a little piece of cardboard. And then what we'll need to do is cut some slits into this cardboard. Do you want both your robot and your Flat Mr. B on the same row? Do you want them to have two different rows so it looks like one's closer, one's further back? You need to make those decisions and then have a mom or a dad help you cut some little slits in here. Once we've decided kind of where we want our people, then we can go in and add little shrubs that will help make it look three-dimensional. We could make some clouds that were maybe stuck in the back, and we could have maybe some that were hanging. We can get really creative with what we're gonna have going on here. So I am going to start making my slits and setting up my scene. Okay, so now that I have cut the slits in my box, I'll show you right here. I got a little slit right here and a little slit right here. I'm gonna set that to the side for just a second. So now I have my flat Mr. B and I have my robot. Now what I need to do is give them little stilts so that what we can do is when we tape them or glue them on, we can slide them in these little holes, and then we can move them around, move our people around like this, back and forth, okay? So let's get those attached. I am going to use double-sided tape. I just think it sticks a little better, but when you're doing this, you're gonna wanna make sure, especially on your robot, because you don't want this kind of sticking in the middle, you wanna try to hide the little stilt. You'll wanna kind of stick it maybe a little further up the back, just to make it, just brace it a little bit. What I did is I just actually used some of the cardboard from this Go-Gurt box? No, what is this? Go-Go Squeeze applesauce box. So I'm just using this, just recycling it to make the little stilts for my people. So I'm going to tape those on, and then I will show you our next step. All right, so here are my two guys taped on. Notice I went as far up as I could to really try to give that stability. If you want to make yours skinnier, you could maybe even try to go up onto the head. I thought it looked like it would probably be okay. So I'm going to take those, I'm going to set them to the side for right now. And let's focus on this box, okay? I am going to make some clouds, okay? So you can use a pencil, you can use a pen, you can use a Sharpie, however you want to do this. So I'm just going to come in here and just make, with that extra paper, and then I'm going to cut these out. I'm going to cut them out, glue them down. I'm going to do the very same thing with some green paper with some bushes. Now, here's the thing about the bushes. Okay. Here's my green paper. When you go to make a bush, you'll want to keep a little flap of it, draw a little line at the bottom. And you want that line to be parallel, which means going the same direction and not able to cross, okay? You're going to keep that parallel to the bottom of the paper. And you are going to use that as a little tab to fold under so that when we go to put our little bush on here, we have something to kind of glue it down with to make it stand upright. So let's say I'm going to make a bush now, okay? So I've done that, and then I am just gonna, nothing fancy. We'll just have it kind of going like this. Now, when I go to cut it out, there goes my glue. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna leave that line as it is, and I'm gonna cut this little bush out. Now, when you draw and then you cut out, you see how we don't always get all of our pencil lines off of there? You want this to be the back side of your bush, okay? So we will take on that line and we are going to fold our paper flat like that, as best we can to keep it straight. It really doesn't matter though. So then we've got the little area where we can glue or tape the bush down and the pencils on the back so you're not gonna see it. So you could come over here and you could glue your little bush down like this. So if you did have Mr. Buffington in here like this, it would look like maybe he was walking behind a bush. Does that make sense? Now that you know how to make things with a little flap so that it looks dimensional, I want you to get creative. I want you to decorate this however you want. And I'm gonna go ahead and tidy mine up and show you the finished product. Now that I have finished putting in all my pieces, I just wanted to kind of go over with you. I took my tree, and what I did is I just went ahead and taped it straight to the back of my cardboard. And I put a little cloud underneath there for some layering to make it look a little more realistic. And then what I did is I put a little bush right up here in the front, and then one kind of a little further back. And now what you can do is, after I've slid my robot and my Mr. B into place, now see they move back and forth. and they can be having a whole little conversation. So now you've got like a little play scene. So you could alter this to change it. You could make all kinds of different characters. You could make any kind of story come to life with this diorama. So I hope you have enjoyed this as much as I have, and I cannot wait to see all that you guys create, all the different scenes that you come up with, all the different characters, all the different robots. I am so excited. Don't forget, use the hashtag stay home and do specials and my metro, and also don't forget to tag me, Mrs. Myers, Krista Myers, in your project. I miss you guys so much. I cannot wait to see what you create.